In this video, we will show you how to replace your front window regulator on this Toyota Sienna. This will be located inside your door. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. We're going to have to remove the door panel to gain access for the removal process. To remove the door panel, we'll be starting in the upper corner. For this, we're going to remove this trim panel. Use a plastic trim tool. Make our way in between this area and gently separate it. A quick inspection will set this aside. Now let's make our way down towards where the window and door lock switches are. Continuing with our plastic trim tool, we're going to pop this trim panel up and out of place. Keep in mind there are wiring harnesses along the back side. Now looking along the back here, we'll disconnect this by squeezing in on the locking tab right where my index finger is. You should be able to pull that out of place. A quick inspection of that harness. If you see any funny colors, that's corrosion and it would need to be dealt with. This one looks fine. Now behind this area, we'll be looking for this Phillips head screw. Go ahead and remove it. We'll make our way up from there. Behind the inside door handle, you're going to find that you have a protective cover. Use a small pick to pull this out of place. And now behind this area, we have another Phillips head screw. Now we're going to follow the door panel out towards where the door latch assembly would be. You're going to find you have another Phillips head screw. Let's remove this. Back to using our plastic trim tool, we're going to separate the door panel from the door. Along the center lower aspect of the door panel, you're going to find a notched out area that you can use that trim tool. Gently make your way in between and start prying that door panel away. With that pulled away from the door, we're going to have to start lifting up on the door panel and pulling it away, but you do want to be careful. There are some cables along the backside. When you go to remove the cables, pay attention to their orientation. You can tell that one area is white along here, the top, and then the cable just below it is the green cable. When we go to reinstall these, we want to make sure we have them in the same orientation. The white cable along the top. To remove these, just take hold of it and pop it right out of place. We're going to pivot it, and then you're going to find that you have the cable has a small ball at the end. You just want to lift it up and out of that groove. A quick inspection of the cable to ensure that it's not damaged in any way. We'll do the same exact thing to the other one. Now we'll have to make our way down along the bottom here. We do have one more wiring harness. Small locking tab right in the center area there. We'll pop it out of place. Go ahead and remove that door panel. With the door panel out of the way, we can start removing some of this vapor barrier. When we remove it, you want to be paying attention to all this black goo along here. This is called butyl tape, and it's extremely sticky. You don't want to get it on your clothing. We'll make sure we carefully pull the cables through here. We don't want anything getting caught. Just continue pulling this down. Now, as we make our way over here, you may find that it makes its way behind part of the speaker. Here. Right up along the top of the speaker itself, you will find that you have an electrical connector. We're going to go ahead and squeeze on that locking tab so we can disconnect this. The locking tab's right along the side. Pull this down and out of the way. Let's continue removing that speaker now. You'll find that this is held in place with 4 10mm headed mounting bolts. Let's continue with our window switch. We're going to reconnect that now. Put the key in the on position. The next thing we'll do is start powering the window down. While doing so, be extremely careful not to have anything inside of the door. It could potentially get damaged or you might get hurt. What we're trying to do here is bring the window regulator down far enough that we can gain access to both pieces of our mounting hardware. We have a 10mm over here and one on the far side. At this point, we'll leave the window switch connected temporarily and remove key power. Let's start removing our 10mm headed mounting bolts. At this point, we're going to start separating the window from the regulator. We'll carefully lift the window into the fully upright position, and then you want to make sure you hold it there with something. Some people will have suction cups with a couple straps on them. Other people are just going to use tape. We'll go with tape. Continuing on, we're going to compress the window regulator by putting the key in the on position and powering the window regulator to the compressed position. You can see it's pretty much straight across this way here. It's not protruding up or down. Remove key power. Let's disconnect our electrical connector over here. One locking tab on that. Now we'll be making our way over towards this side. You'll find a 10mm headed bolt. Making your way towards the center, there's another one. Remove the pair. Now, as we continue making our way towards the other side of the door, you're going to find that you have 4 more 10mm headed mounting bolts. For this upper left-hand corner, we're going to loosen it, but leave it in a couple threads. Now we'll fully remove the other 3. Carefully reach inside the door, take hold of the window regulator. You're going to have to lift it up a little bit so you can remove that mounting bolt from its mounting hole. After that, we'll be bringing it right out through this port. Let's get this over to the bench. On the bench, we're going to remove this mounting bolt. We'll set that aside. Now, while we're still on this side, I want to point out the fact that you do have spring tension on the window regulator. That's important to note before you start removing the window motor. Looking along the other side here, you can see that we have 3 T25 mounting screws that hold the window motor to the window regulator. Before we start removing those screws, as I mentioned, this is under spring tension. It's going to want to spin on you once you do dislodge that motor. To help prevent that, we'll just be using some locking pliers. Now, if you were to look at the window motor here, you can see that it has this area that protrudes out. That's the side that we want to make sure that we have the locking pliers on, because this will want to spin down. Whatever you do, make sure you do not have your fingers in any pinch points throughout this entire process. Get some locking pliers on here. We'll use our T25 to remove these screws, once again being extremely careful for any pinch points. Remove the window motor, a quick inspection, set it aside. At this point, removing those locking pliers, we're going to be extremely careful. I'm holding underneath this area here, and I'm going to squeeze this area, gently applying extra pressure on that spring. We'll remove those locking pliers. Now we'll start letting this retract. And now you can set this aside for recycling. There it is, friend. Okay, friend, let's prepare to install our brand new window regulator. Now, once again, this does have the spring along the backside here, so we're going to pull this into the original position. When we took it apart, it was approximately halfway. We've got that center beam here. Now we'll take that window motor and get that in position as well and start in each of our 3 mounting bolts, being extremely careful for any pinch points. If you find it necessary, go ahead and use your locking pliers on this as well. Just going to get this aligned. Just make sure each of these 3 mounting screws are nice and tight. We'll get our 1 mounting bolt started in. Start bringing this into position. Now that I have that in there, we'll align each of our other 3 mounting bolt holes here. Start in those mounting bolts, snug them up. Let's get that electrical connector connected. Now we'll move along to our shorter rod here. We're going to align it with its 2 mounting bolt holes. You can see exactly where the mounting bolt heads were. I'm just going to try to have it properly aligned. Let's get the key in the on position. We're going to have to power that window regulator down so we can gain access to the mounting hardware that will hold the window regulator to the bottom of the window. You can see one area here. I'm going to bring this one down just a little bit further. Remove key power. Start lowering the window down, get it properly aligned with that regulator. It's getting close here. Just bring this over. With that aligned, go ahead and start in those mounting bolts and snug them up. The next thing we'll do is put the key in the on position, and we're going to power the window all the way to the upright position. Once it's up there, continue holding that switch in the upright position for approximately 5 to 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can release the switch and test the functionality. Now, if when you powered the window up, it makes its way back down and then stops, you need to repeat the process of holding that switch in the fully upright position. Once again, 5 to 10 seconds. Once it functions as it should, remove the switch and we'll continue with the installation. We'll disconnect that window switch. Continue on with the reinstallation of your speaker. We'll take this and get it in place. When you bring this in, you want to come at an angle because along the top you can see that there is a small hooked area. Once you have those mounting holes aligned, start in the mounting hardware. Do not tighten any of them until they're all started in. Now with that in place, before we plug it in, we're going to continue on with our vapor barrier, carefully putting it in place. Keep in mind you do have a couple wiring harnesses that need to be on the outside and also both of your cables. Just make sure we slide both of those through this port. As for the cables, they're going to go through this slot right along here. Let's get this back in its original position, at least as close as possible. Now it's time for our speaker wiring harness. We'll press this in. Listen for a click, give it a tug to make sure that's properly secured. Now it's time to reinstall the door panel. Before we do, there's several things that we want to pay attention to. Along the bottom, we have our wiring harness. We're going to want to make sure that we reconnect that. Towards the center here, we also have another wiring harness for that window switch. As you continue making your way up, you're going to have the area for your cables. And you also want to pay attention along the top of that door panel. You have this ridged area where I'm holding. That needs to come up nice and high, and it's going to make its way up and over this area of the door. With all that said, let's start at the bottom with the electrical connector. Let's start with this electrical connector down at the bottom here. There we are. We'll give that a little tug. Let's continue bringing this up. We'll be paying attention to our cables now. When we remove these, I had told you to pay attention to the orientation. As you remember, up along the top, you had the white. And then down below that, the next cable is the one with the green. We'll start with the green, which is the lowest one here. Slide the very end in, and then you're going to bring this around and lock it into position. Same thing for the top. Slide it in, swing it, lock it in. Now, as we start bringing this up, we're going to pay attention to our window wiring harness there. We want to reach through the door panel, take hold of that, and make sure you do have access to it. We'll just slide it right on through. Bringing the door panel up nice and high, as I mentioned, we're going to make sure we go over that lip. We'll start bringing this down. Once you can look along the side and you can see that you're properly aligned, we'll continue on driving this in. We have all of those push clips that will squeeze into the door. Take hold of the door panel, make sure it's properly secured. Let's continue on with the mounting hardware for the door panel. We'll be using our Phillips head with our rubber bumper here. Let's make sure that's snug. Now we'll make our way over towards where the grab handle is. We'll be reinstalling our Phillips head screw here. You'll be using the longer of the 2 Phillips head screws. Let's get this right into position. Make sure that's nice and tight. Now it's time for the window switch. When you go to put this in position, we'll be paying attention to all of our locking tabs making their way around, aligning them with the door panel. Press it down, make sure that's properly secured. We'll be using the shorter Phillips head screw for inside the inside door handle here. Install your protective cover. Now we can get this last trim piece on here. You want to pay attention. Along the bottom you will have a hook and then a secondary hook right along here. Up along the top you should find that you do have a push clip. If it's missing from here, it's probably in the mounting point. If that's the case, just go ahead and pry it out of there, insert it in the trim panel. Bring those hooks down and into place and lock it in.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.